Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer, and I'll be taking you through the second hour right here up until 10 p.m. right here on WGBB right here in Merrick, New York. And, if there's anything else that you'd like to check out from Sports Talk 1240, you can check us out on Twitter at Sports Talk 1240. You can check us out on Facebook, Sports Talk 1240, and give us a like. And you can check us out on sportstalk1240.com and see everything else that we have to offer. Well, right now it is September 9th, 2018. It's a rainy Sunday night right here in New York. And, we're really getting into that interesting part of the schedule right now. The kids are going back to school. Summer's over. We're getting ready for fall to kick in. Autumn is right around the corner, and it's football season. We got that smell of football in the air. I'll be breaking down all the local football in the second half of the show. I want to kick it off with baseball because, the Yankees right now, they're in a situation where they, you're kind of playing out the string. You're behind the Red Sox. You're 8 games out coming into today. You lost a tough one in Seattle. They won the series. That's what they had to do. They had to win the series above all else, and they had to, winning those first 2 games is huge. You expect CC going on in the third game. You expect maybe him to get a little bit deeper into the game. I mean, 5 innings, 84 pitches, but the guy slogged his way through. There's not much you can really say about CC there. The guy did what he gave it the bare minimum that you would ask of CC Sabathia today is what you got. And listen, you're not going to get the top performance out of the guy every week. He's 37 years old. So, and CC's been pretty good this year. He's battled a couple of injuries, but I'm pretty happy with what CC's given the Yankees this year. It's not what it's been last year, but hey, you know what? If CC comes up and has a big another playoff moment this season, Yankee fans will soon forget his slightly inconsistent regular season. But, this week started off a little more shaky for the Yankees. You win 2 out of 3 in Seattle this weekend, but Labor Day coming up the beginning of this week, the Yankees had a tough series against the only team in competition with them for those 2 wild card slots, the Oakland Athletics. And Oakland has proved to be a hell of a team this year. They got names that, Chris Davis is one of the top names in there. No, not the lefty Chris Davis from the Baltimore Orioles, who got that $160 million contract a couple of years ago and is now one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball. It's a guy, Chris Davis, who's not getting paid that much money, who goes out and hits 40 home runs and drives in around 100 or over 100 runs every single year. And, a bunch of other guys, Jonathan Lucroy, who is hitting the bottom half of that lineup and has really held down that catcher's position. Matt Davidson is picking up third base, 26 years old, a young kid, hitting around 280. But every single one of his hits seems to be a big hit. They got Jed Lowry, the former Red Sox, former Houston Astro. It's a very scrappy team with a very scrappy, the main thing about that team is that they pitch very well. And that would scare me. They have a very solid bullpen. Although you have guys like Blake Trinan and Jerry's Familia, as Met fans know, they can scare the heck out of you. But the Oakland A's are a tough team. So if I was Yankee fans, even though on paper the Yankees blow them away, sometimes that doesn't really matter. I remember a couple of years ago, the Kansas City Royals. Everybody thought there was no chance they were going to get past Oakland in that wild card game, where it was I forget who started for Kansas City in that game, but you had John Lester, who the Oakland A's traded Yoenis Cespedes for, just for that type of situation to have Lester go into that game, and Lester cruised his way into the eighth inning, and then got shelled, and the next thing you knew, Kansas City was on their way to the World Series. So you never know what can happen in these situations, but right now I really like how Oakland's playing, and they took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees earlier this week. The Yankees, you really could have buried that and felt a lot better about yourself if you'd swept Seattle, because Seattle really has nothing to play for by this point. You know, Seattle's what? They're 78-64 now. They're still playing good baseball. They're still, in many other years they'd be in the hunt. They might even be leading their division. They might even be leading the wild card. But this is just a situation where, if you're in their position, you're out. You're done. It stinks. It stinks when you got other guys, and when you have the Houston Astros in your division, when you have the Oakland Athletics playing like they are in your division, and even a scrappy team, they're not in the hunt anymore. But you got 19 games against a team like the Anaheim Angels, who don't have the best pitching in the world, but man, they'll club you to death. That Ohtani is some player. Shame about his arm. Wish it's gonna be another year or two before we see him pitch, but man, that guy can hit the ball. He's almost got 20 home runs. He hasn't even played half a season. So, and I know I'm going on an American League tangent right now while I'm talking about the Yankees, but, it just goes to show you the talent in the American League right now. I think for the first time in a while, even though you wouldn't think so by the All-Star game outcomes, I think the American League is truly, the more dominant team, the more dominant league at this point. You have heavyweights upon heavyweights going from the Yankees to Boston. You have, like we mentioned, Oakland and Houston out west. You've got the Cleveland Indians, who, now, I know this might sound a little crazy, but Cleveland has had all this fanfare around them the last year or two with all their success in the regular season. But they flew under the radar so much this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a little noise in the playoffs again. Don't expect another first round exit for them. There's not as much pressure as there's been on in years past. They're still going to be in there. Cleveland could be one of those teams that a lot of people overlook because, yeah, they just got to the World Series. Yeah, they choked last year against the Yankees in Game 5. But that could be one of those teams that proves to be let's cruise through, we're on cruise control in the regular season, and we really pick it up and flip that switch in the postseason and win the games, that we need to win. Just like it kind of reminds me of the Yankees at the end of their 90s run, where even in 2000 they won 87 games, but you knew in the playoffs the Yankees were not going to be an easy out, and they certainly were not. But, as we continue looking at this game today, uh, you know, I've gone over the last week for the Yankees. They're 3-3. They lost 2 out of 3. They won 2 out of 3. So they're just where they were when the week started. Nothing gained, nothing lost, which also means that you're running out of time. They're 2.5 games ahead of Oakland now. So Oakland is closing that gap, and the loss today. Dylan Betances comes in. I know as a Yankee fan, Dylan Betances can't blow that game. They can't lose that game when he's in there. It's a heartbreaker, and it's very demoralizing, especially on getaway day when you're jumping on an airplane right after that game. They're going to Minnesota where they start a 3-game set. They're gonna have to do some damage, and when you look at because we're at the part of the season, it's scoreboard watching time, baby. This isn't playtime anymore. This isn't April and May where you can take a peek at the scoreboard and giggle and think about maybe in October it's time. No, 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 no. Now it's time to look at that scoreboard and start thinking mathematically. Oh no, you know, how many games do we have left? How many games do they have left? How many games against good teams do they have? Well, Oakland starts a 3-game set with the Baltimore Orioles tomorrow, and at 41 and 101, I don't think they would fall into the consideration of good team. So the Baltimore Orioles are standing in the Yankees' way tomorrow, and not in a good way. So you're gonna have to see how Oakland fares. Maybe maybe running into some bad weather because it's supposed to be rainy this week in Baltimore. Maybe running into some bad weather will be good for them and you know, take them out of their element. But I don't know. Good teams usually find a way to win, especially against bad teams. And the Yankees will also be playing a bad team in Minnesota. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But you're really gonna have to win all of these games against bad teams, and it's because the Red Sox, you're not looking at the Red Sox anymore. You're not comparing yourself to the Red Sox. You don't expect if you got to win your games. If you win your games, the Red Sox lose. Sure, you can put yourself back in that division title. But right now, the only thing that you can control is the wild card. And if you win your games, nobody else is taking the wild card from you. That's the bottom line. And the Yankees right now, they're playing like a team that and it's not their fault. I know. J.A. Happ has kind of been up and down. Lance Lynn has not been his last few starts what the Yankees expected. I told you to go out and get Snell, but it's easier said than done. I get it. But the Yankees would be feeling a lot better about themselves if they had him in their rotation right now. But what are you gonna do? Right now, the Yankees are just in this spot where you have to let the chips fall where they may. What are you going to get out of Severino? Is Severino, just going to keep going on this nosedive straight to the playoffs? How can you let that happen? Um, you got to hope that CC comes, into form around the stretch, which he pitched okay today, so you're not that worried about him. You don't know what you're going to get out of Lance Lynn. You kind of expect, you know, J Happ to be maybe especially in the playoffs, maybe a 6 innings, 3 run split pitcher. 6 innings, 2 runs. If you could get that out of him every start, you'd be happy. One way or the other, the Yankee offense should be putting up more than that, 2 or 3 runs, or just that to keep you in the game. So it's just funny. A lot of people were thinking the Yankees were going to run away with it and hide this year, but Boston's just having one of those seasons where they're doing just that. So the Yankees got to fight and claw and scratch for every inch of ground they're going to gain this season. And sometimes that could be the best thing for a team. Boston, when was the last time Boston played a game that really meant anything? Months ago. And not that, but it's one of those things where the Red Sox and the Yankees are both going to be in the playoffs this year. The Yankees just have to make sure they get that home game. You saw how much that home game meant last year. Sure, it didn't mean much to the Mets in 2016, and sure, it didn't mean much to the Yankees in 2015. But it definitely helps. And one of the things that really stands out in my head from that AL wildcard game last year against the Minnesota Twins at Yankee Stadium was how the Yankee fans reacted after Severino's tough first inning. He gave up a couple of runs, and the crowd reacted as if the Yankees were ahead when they came off the mound, when they came into the dugout during that half inning. And it revitalized the Yankees, and it really seemed like, man, it got them going. And then it was the same thing when the Yankees put up a couple of runs in the first. Then you saw Brett Gardner hit that home run in the second, and they were off to the races. And I think it's the same kind of thing. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But I think, especially in a case where Yankee Stadium, man, where you get that stadium moving back and forth and swaying for you, there's not much can change that feeling, and that can lift a team up like nothing else. And just like we said, the Yankees at Oakland start this crucial stretch down the stretch, and the Yankees really have to finish up. They start starting on Friday, this Friday the 14th. They start a 9-game homestand. That's their final homestand of the year. So you got to take it to the limit right there, man. Take it to the limit, Yankees. You, they're gonna win over 90 games. Obviously, they're at 89 right now. So it's gonna be a good season. They're gonna be in the playoffs, but you got to finish strong, and you head into that wild card game. Usually, the hot team wins it. And if things keep playing out as they are right now, that one-game playoff, the Yankees will not be the hot team. Oakland will be, and that's something the Yankees can't deal with right now. So you got to get Aaron Judge back, get him healthy. I like the McCutchen pickup too. A lot of people thought it was going to mess with the chemistry or whatever. I like it. Guys come. He's played. He's let off. He's had some big hits. He's also had a couple of missteps, but who doesn't? And I I overall give it a thumbs up. And the Yankees are doing everything they can, man. They're making all kinds of patchwork. It's going to take every single player on that roster down the stretch, but I think they'll be fine in the long run. And just to cross over on that, a team that I'm not sure if they're going to be fine in the long run or not, the New York Mets. You know, we're going to take a look at the Mets for the next couple of minutes, so if you want to hit the snooze button, I don't blame you. But Jacob DeGrom was scratched today. That's the main thing heading down these last couple of weeks for the Mets right now. DeGrom was scratched. He'll start tomorrow though against Miami at Citi Field. So if you want to get your money's worth in seeing the Mets for the rest of the season, you might as well just see him because he's the big draw for the rest of the year. Syndergaard's been great too. He's 11-3. He's got some things he's got to correct, but for the most part, the results are there. Wheeler, we've seen great things out of Wheeler. How incredible has he been? You know, since over his last 15 starts, Zach Wheeler is 7-2 with a 2.28 ERA. He's had one of the best runs of his career, and it's just really incredible to see a guy like him come back from injury and just pitch the way he has. It's pretty much what everybody hoped was going to happen to Harvey, and in 2015 it did. 2015 he did look like this, but you know didn't work out that way. Well, they did have a good game on Saturday, 6 innings in a win, struck out 10 batters. His first double-digit strikeout game after leaving the Mets. So I guess that's something to look at. But like I said, the three guys, Mats, he's pitched good the last couple of times out, but he's gotten you know let down by his offense again. Lost one game where he struck out 11 batters over 7 innings and allowed one run. And the Mets ended up losing that game 15-0 in a game where their starter pitched 7 innings and allowed one run. That just goes to show you that something the Mets really have to concentrate on in the offseason is getting that bullpen straightened out. You guys got to figure that out. Gesellman has been okay. Seth Lugo has really been great. Really can't complain about Seth Lugo, but they've really been all over the place. And they picked up a win today, 6-4. What does it matter? Improved to 65-77. Conforto has been looking good. He had a 3-run shot today. He's in some rarefied air. He's one of only a handful of Mets to hit back-to-back 20 home run seasons, age 26 or under. Darryl Strawberry, David Wright are on that list. So, John Milner is also on there. So you got some guys on there that really hold some weight when it comes to Met history and the record books. So you really got to look at that too. Conforto didn't start off as well as he could have, but looks like he's rounded into form second half of this season. Speaking of guys that are coming up big in the second half, a guy who was promoted in the second half, but he's hit all years, Jeff McNeil. This guy, man, he's hitting over 450 at Citi Field since he's been called up. He's just been incredible. He's hitting 340 right now. He had another 3-hit game today. He's got 4 triples. He's hitting doubles left and right. This guy, I don't know how it took him so long to get a promotion to the majors this season, at least, because he's had an injury-plagued career before this and, was spotty at times in his production. But this year, Jeff McNeil has really, really come out on all top. And MLB Pipeline recently put out their all-star team for the minor leagues for this season, and first base and second base were both Mets. Second base was Jeff McNeil, who ripped it up at Double and Triple A this year, and also a Met who ripped it up at Double and Triple A was Peter Alonso, their first baseman, who had 36 home runs and drove in 119 RBIs across two levels, and he should have gotten a call to the majors. I know. Listen, if you're a Met fan and you want to call up and debate the positive and negatives of keeping him in the minor leagues, listen, if the Mets are going to try to sell to their fan base that they're worried about a guy hitting free agency in 2024 as opposed to 2025, you're not a major league team. I'm sorry. I can't sit here and make excuses for a team that's gonna think that way. I get in some cases it may make sense, but in this one it just does not. This is a guy that you could have gotten a nice 30-game look at. You could have stuck him at first base, and even in that stead, okay, if you're not gonna bring this kid up, why isn't Dominic Smith playing at first base every single day? Jay Bruce. I know he's under a 3-year contract. I know you want to work him in, but Jay Bruce should not be playing first base ever, ever. I don't want to see Jay Bruce at first base. I want to see a first baseman at first base. And you know what, I think bringing Jay Bruce back is the Mets' own fault to begin with. They should have had their scouts see, and you should be able to know your own system enough that Brandon Nimmo was ready to take over the starting role as one of your starting 3 outfielders this year, no matter where you're going to put him, whether you were anticipating Cespedes being in the lineup or not. He should have been in that mix. And now you threw this money at Jay Bruce. You're stuck with him for the next 2 years, no matter what, because you'd pretty much have to eat his entire contract to get anybody to take him back. So, you're just sitting here and you're stuck with a guy that now you've got to try to fit him in a position that he has no business being at, and you can't blame him when he's making misplays. His instincts there aren't good, and it's not his fault. He's not a first baseman. He's an outfielder. So you're playing Dom Smith in left field. You play him at first base. It's just typical Mets mismanagement, and it's pretty much everything you should expect. But you know what? I'm sick of all this negativity. Let's take a look at some positivity. We got another couple of minutes before we're going to take the break. Let me get you positive. If you're a Met fan, maybe I'll have you smile in the next couple of minutes. So think about this. Since the Mets lost 2 out of 3 to Chicago a couple weeks ago, they've won 3 straight series. So that's pretty nice. They've won 4 of the last 5 series. All right? Now hold on to this. Since August 1st, the Mets are 21-17. You know what other team is also 21-17? The AL wildcard leading New York Yankees, since August 1st, have the same record as the 65-77 New York Mets. So over the last 6 weeks or so, they've played relatively the same ball. Now let's take it a step further than that. Since July 1st, the Yankees are 36-27 with their loss today. The Mets are now 33-29. So since July 1st, the Yankees are only 2.5 games better than the Mets. Now what does that mean? Well, it means that in May and June, the Mets went a combined 15-39 and flushed their season down the toilet. That's essentially what that means. What it also means is that I want to kind of, say that I see a little bit of growth in Mickey Callaway. I see a little bit of this team coming around a little bit. And you can see, maybe, if the Mets make a couple of right moves. And a right move could be just as simple as the Yankees trading Jason Shreve for Luke Voigt. That can be a right move if you do it at the right time and it's the right player. Now the Mets just have to do a couple of right moves. Maybe spend a little money. Make their bullpen better. Improve their defense. Figure out a couple of things. Get your GM that you want to move forward with. Get your team in order. And maybe, maybe you already have a few of the pieces that are going to take this team to the next level. I'm not saying that we should throw a party because the Mets have been a couple of games over 500 for the last 2 months. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying we should even be satisfied with it whatsoever. What I'm saying is that when you come off a month like June of this year, where you're 5-21, and everything that could possibly have went wrong, and then the second half of the season, where I will remind you that they still have had one game in the second half of the season with Cespedes, and Jay Bruce has just been back for the last week or two. So most of this time has been without, as Fran Healy would say, their big boppers. So maybe, just maybe, we're starting to see not only this pitching team, this pitching staff, this offense, and this whole team take a step forward. Maybe we're starting to see that. And like I said, let's temper our expectations, but I do like what I'm seeing. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will take our first break of the day. It is we'll be right back talking about the NFL and everything that we've seen today, and the Jets tomorrow. We'll be right back.
Want to advertise your business on SportsTalk 1240? Place an ad on SportsTalk1240.com and run a radio commercial during the show every Sunday night here on AM 1240 WGBB. Our rates are
You guys know a guy named Beverly Hills Doug?
Yes. Yes.
SportsTalk1240.com and fill out the Contact Us form and let us start promoting your business today.
And for the music in the back, right?
We'll do the regular
Transmitted, so, right.
Then it'll just be silent, silent, and I'll do my little
On the top first, okay.
and then right after this date, I'll
When you point.
Yep, I'll point. Thank you.
Visit Ghostbuster.com and get your Ghostbuster today.
Stand by.
Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's 1240. You're listening to Sports Talk 1240. Sunday night beginning at 8 p.m. Right here on Long Island's AM 1240 WGBD, the station that serves your community. And now back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us through the break, and we're right back here. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, right here on Sports Talk 1240, and right now I want to do a little This Day in Sports History. September 9th, 1960, the Denver Broncos defeat the Boston Patriots 13-10 in the AFL's first ever game, played in front of 21,597 at Nickerson Field in Boston. On this date, in September 9th, 1965, Sandy Koufax breaks his tie with Bob Feller and Cy Young for the most all-time no-hitters by tossing his fourth on this date, a 1-0 win against the Cubs. And this one was a perfect game. He struck out 14 and outdueled Cubs starter Bob Henley, who threw a complete game, allowing only one hit and an unearned run. On this date, September 9th, 1972, the U.S. men's basketball team put their 63-0 record in international basketball competition on the line, and their 8th consecutive gold medal was within grasp. The Americans took a 50-49 lead into the final 3 seconds of the game in potentially the most controversial calls in Olympic history, The final 3 seconds is replayed 3 different times until the Soviet Union finally took the inbound pass and put it in to give them a 51-50 lead and the game. The U.S. would protest the finish but ultimately settle with the silver medal. On this date, September 9th, 1987, Hall of Famer Nolan Ryan strikes out 16 batters in a 4-2 win over the San Francisco Giants at the Astrodome, becoming the first pitcher to strike out 4,500 batters in his career. Since then, only Randy Johnson and Roger Clemens have joined him. And finally, on September 9th, 1998, the Yankees win 7-5 in Fenway Park, clinching the AL East Division title. This improved their record to 102-41, and leading the second-place Red Sox by 20.5 games, the Yankees became the earliest division champions in American League history. And that's it for this day in sports history. All right, ladies and gentlemen, do you hear that sound? Do you hear that beautiful music? Because that music can only mean one thing, and that means that it is time for the NFL. Right now, we've got our first Sunday night game of the year going on, and it's the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. But right here in New York, we're a lot more concerned about what our Giants and our Jets are doing. And to be honest, before I jump into the Giants and the Jets, we have a caller on hold right now, my friend Doug from Beverly Hills. I'd like to see what's on his mind. Doug, how you doing, buddy?
Tell him turn on his radio. Tell him turn on his radio.
Hey, Doug, if you could turn your radio down a little bit, Doug. That's perfect. Thanks, buddy. God bless her, buddy. Sorry about that. September 9th, 2007. I don't know. I can't think of what's going on. Holy cow. Mm-hmm. It's true. And you see the Giants today. They had so much individual success. You had Saquon Barkley with 100. You had OBJ, and it just seems like they have all that stuff and they just can't put it together for whatever reason. If you looked at it, you would think that you know you'd think they should have dropped 30 points today. Yes, yes, you're right. Yeah. Yes, it's true. You're right. Yeah, I agree. And there's so many times where and thank you, Doug, for your call, man. I really appreciate it, Doug. He's one of the best, and I appreciate you calling in and talking to you about the Giants, man. And it's one of those things, just like Doug said. Eli Manning, he gets bad mouthed so much by Giants fans. When in reality, when you really think about it, Eli, sure, he had his bad moment today with Miles Jack picking him off, taking him back to the house, but he manages the game, and he managed the game perfectly today. He made that one mistake. He still has the numbers. He has the ability to go out there. And if you saw, there were a couple of times where he made passes, especially I forget exactly where the pass was he made to Odell Beckham. I think it was the play that put Beckham over 100 for the first time today. And when he made that play, the touch that he put on that pass, he put it in the exact spot that only the receiver could catch it. It wasn't going to get picked off, and he knew that Beckham was going to be able to bring it down. And just a great point by Doug there that this guy takes so much flack from everybody, Giants fans, non-Giants fans, national commentators act like he's the butt of the joke sometimes. This guy's a two-time Super Bowl champion, and you've very rarely seen a guy, you know, not only spoken about but treated as poorly as he is, and it just really upsets you. But you know, like we were talking about, coming into this game, you have the Giants taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just to set the scene real quick, the Giants, they were 3-3 coming into this game all time against Jacksonville. They've only played 6 times. The last time they played was November of 2014, where the Giants lost 25-24 at Jacksonville. And on paper, like I was saying to Doug earlier, you would really think that these guys had some really solid numbers for everything like that. And individually, it was really a good fantasy day for our Giants fans friends. But when it comes down to it, you want W's. You don't want anything. You want W's. That's what it comes down to. But you know what? I'm going to take another call right now. We got Dave on the line. Dave, what's on your mind, buddy? Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah, very true, Dave. No doubt about it. Now, from what you saw out of the Giants today, uh, you know, do you feel kind of like our buddy Doug did? How the Giants just weren't using these guys to the best way they possibly can. Yeah, I completely agree. I think they're going to at least grab one of those, um, games in Texas. I think that as we saw, the Dallas Cowboys didn't exactly have a great opening today. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree, Dave, and thank you for your call. I just want to ask you one thing before you go. Gut feeling, Giants playoffs this year, yes or no? I definitely agree, and the Giants kicking game is definitely taken up a notch this year. And thank you, Dave, for your call. I appreciate it, and have a good night, buddy. And if you want to call in and give us your thoughts on the football that we've watched today by the Giants, or the football we will be watching tomorrow night for the New York Jets, give me a call right now at 516-623-1240. That's 516-623-1240. Right here on Sports Talk 1240. So, we've talked a lot about the Giants. The Giants got they had a rough thing today, rough loss against Jacksonville, who's a tough team. And just as Dave said, a great defense from Jacksonville. They really played very well today. Miles Jack is a superior defender, so really can't argue with that at all. So the Giants got 2 games in Texas. They're playing Dallas next week. They're playing Houston the week after. So you got to win one of those two. And then, just like you said, you got a fighter's chance. And, you know, Philly went 13-3 last year. I don't know if we're going to be seeing that again in this division, but uh, you know, as we have mentioned to both callers, scoring 15 points with the individual performances that we've seen this week is just not enough. You've got to find a way to manipulate more out of your offense. That's a simple fact. And with that, we'll turn the page to tomorrow night. As right now, I definitely enjoyed watching the Giants today. It was nice to see some real football, but unfortunately, I'm a Jet fan, so tomorrow night is what I've had circled on my calendar for a little while. So, opening the season tomorrow night in Detroit against the Lions. The Jets haven't beat the Lions since 2010 when they won 23-20 at Ford Field. The last time these two teams matched up was 2014 at MetLife, when the Lions took that one 24-17. So, the Jets got a few injuries and everything to deal with. We got Jermaine Kearse has an abdominal strain. He's going to miss some time. Linebacker Avery Williamson. You got to remember, the Jets spent some money in this offseason. They brought in defensive back like Trumaine Johnson. They brought in Avery Williamson. They brought in a new center, Spencer Long. So they spent some money, and Williamson right now looks like he's got a little bit of a strained hammy, so he's going to miss a little bit of time, but he's questionable, so he could make the start tomorrow. And if he doesn't start, he could appear at some point, hopefully. Safety Marcus May, who was early draft pick last year, who really panned out. One of the best non-first round picks the Jets have made in quite a few years. He's doubtful. He's dealing with an ankle injury, so But one thing I do like is that the Jets bolstered the backups for their secondary this year. They picked up safety J.J. Wilcox. J.J. Wilcox has been talked about, you know, a lot that much, but if you've listened to me on Sports Talk 1240 all summer, you would hear that J.J. Wilcox was one of the first veterans that really stepped up and helped Sam Darnold and really taught Sam Darnold how a safety baits a rookie, not necessarily a rookie, but a younger quarterback, a more, uh, a more mistake-prone quarterback. How he was teaching him how they bait them into making the wrong throws and to making it look like they can't get to a spot that they can easily. So J.J. Wilcox has really impressed me. The preseason, he looked very good, so I'm expecting some nice things to see out of that young man this year, no doubt about it. And, well, all of that, everything, like I just said, the Jets have those injured players, and they got a couple of guys facing suspensions, too. Robbie Anderson, tight end Chris Herndon, wide receiver Ardarius Stewart has already been suspended. So everything that I just talked about there a little bit might sound bad, might sound like, oh no, typical Jets, but there's a lot of optimism coming from this team and their fans right now. Rookie quarterback Sam Darnold officially takes the reins tomorrow, and the enthusiasm coming from everybody. One of the first things I remember hearing of the offensive lineman in his as soon as he started getting into training camp and his little mini holdout, ended. Um, the first thing I remember hearing is everybody saying that when he comes in the huddle, that kid takes charge, and that's what you need a quarterback to do. You can't have a quarterback sitting in there twiddling his thumbs. He's got to take control of the situation, and he's got to know that he's the man in charge, and that everybody, even the 33-year-old offensive guard, is looking toward this 21-year-old quarterback to run the offense. And right now, it looks like he's coming up to that pretty good. And I just wanted to do something real quick because I saw on the Jets app, which just to give them a little plug, download New York Jets app. They give the schedule. They got a whole bunch of articles and everything. You can follow the game live and everything. So I was checking that out, and I noticed they had a little blurb about how the Jets are handling their rookie quarterback this year in 2018 as compared to how past coaches and past regimes have handled their quarterback situations, specifically with first-round quarterbacks. Now, obviously, we go back to 1965 with Joe Namath. That was the first one. Weeb Eubank, the coach back then, he didn't start his first game until week 3 that season. He was the backup and didn't play a snap in week 1. Came up and played a little mop-up duty in week 2, and then finally took the reins and didn't look back in week 3. And then the next thing you know, 2 or 3 years later, well, 2 years later he's throwing for 4,000 yards. 3 years later he's winning a Super Bowl. So you really can't argue with how they handled Joe Willie Namath. And, the next one goes right from this first-round pick to 10 years later, another first-round pick, Richard Todd. He started the 1976 season as their former first-round pick's backup. Namath took them to a 1-6 record. And in week 8 in Buffalo, they handed the reins over to Richard Todd, who would start the rest of the season and would hold on to that starting job till 1983. So Richard Todd lasted until they drafted their next first-round quarterback, and that was Ken O'Brien. Ken O'Brien, who had a nice little run in the 90s, the 80s, and I think he lasted a year or two in the 90s. But Ken O'Brien, they drafted him in 83, and he didn't play a snap for the full season. He sat there as, actually, he was the third-string quarterback. They had Pat Ryan was the backup to Richard Todd in 83. Then in 84, Pat Ryan became the starter, and they elevated Ken O'Brien to backup, and he played spotty, so limited action, took a couple of snaps. And then he finally got that starting job in 1985, where the Jets came out of the gun and looked like a bunch of all-pros up until reality struck, that was. And then right after that, so you had all those picks, and from 83 until 2000, the Jets did not select a quarterback in the first round, which I guess you can see how that hamstrung the team over that time. But the next pick, the next first round pick they spent on a quarterback was Chad Pennington in 2000, who sat out most of that season. He debuted in Week 14 that year, uh, you know, and he didn't make his first start until Week 5 of 2002. And if you're a Jet fan, you're going to remember that because that was after the infamous game where the Jets lost, and Herm Edwards gave his "You play to win the game" speech that sent the game that set his team on a run. The Jets would finish 9-7 in a three-way tie with the Dolphins and the Patriots for the AL East lead, and by whatever tiebreakers, the Jets would win the division that year, and that's one of their only AL East titles in the last however many years. 98 and 2002. In 2002, man, that was a fluke because they had to have all the right things happen, and they had to beat Brett Favre in the last game of the season where they won 42-17. So, oh boy, everything had to work out right there. So, and as we all know, or as Jet fans all remember, I'm sure, Mark Sanchez started his first game in 2009, a win over the Houston Texans. So, while Mark Sanchez had extreme highs, like beating the Patriots in the playoffs and everything, he got the Jets to 2 AFC title games, back-to-back, that is, in 2009 and 10. And, the extreme lows just outnumbered them, and, when Jet fans look at him, I'm sure most Jet fans just think of the butt fumble against the Patriots, so, that's all you really need to know about that guy. And, the Jets reportedly right now, as if you're watching the Sunday Night Football game with the Chicago Bears and their new star linebacker, Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, supposedly the Jets were in on that deal too. The Jets offered a first and a third, but ultimately it took 2 first-round picks, and the Chicago Bears got that job done. I'm glad the Jets were in on it. I'm glad they didn't pull the trigger because 2 first-round picks might have been a bit much. Although, if the Chicago Bears end up going on a run, you can make the case that they didn't overpay for it. If the Bears win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years, and Khalil Mack plays a big role in it, are they really going to be shedding a tear about losing 2 first-round picks? So, you kind of have to keep that in perspective, see how that is. There's another guy that is talked about that could be on the move right now, Le'Veon Bell. I heard his name mentioned in relation to the Jets, but it wouldn't take nearly as much draft capital to get him, as he would essentially only be a rental, because even if he does sign back with the Jets, whatever team trades for him, it can't be official until after the year, because technically he's a franchise player, so he'd have to sign that franchise tender for this season, and then the new contract wouldn't take effect and can't even be talked about until after the year. So he could just, come to a team and then just leave right after, and there's nothing you could do. You wouldn't get anything back for it. So that's why it's not going to be much. I heard people say 3, a third-round choice, but that's even speculative at this point because I still see him going back to the Steelers, and it's just very interesting right now as we have done a great job talking all the NFL and everything, and the New York Jets. I can't wait to see how their life is now with a new, young, rookie quarterback. We've been through this before with Mark Sanchez. Giants fans have been through this with a young Eli Manning, and they groomed him into a champion. So this is something that New York is, very familiar with. So it's something that we're really going to have to sit back and let develop right in front of our eyes. And, there's really nothing else you could say. The last thing that I do want to throw in, though, is that if you are a New York Ranger fan and you want to see some of the young prospects that that they've brought in, like Libor Hajek and Elias Anderson and Philip Hedel and Tim Gettinger, Ryan Lidgren, Brett Howden, a lot of these guys that they got from the trade deadline last year, check out the Rangers Traverse City tournament where they're playing a bunch of teams. 12 different teams are playing a little rookie tournament in Detroit. Well, not Detroit, but in Michigan. It's by Detroit. And it's very fun. You can catch it on foxsportsgo.com. So check that out. It's a lot of fun. They had a great game on Friday and another great game on Saturday. So check it out. A lot of enthusiasm there. And the Rangers actually won that tournament in 2007. But we're winding down on our time here, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for joining me here on Sports Talk 1240. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can catch me at Cramer New York. That's at CramerNY. You can catch me. You can catch my other show, Coffee with Cramer, on Twitter too. That's at Coffee W Cramer Cramer. And you can check that out. I did a great podcast, SummerSlam preview with Eastside Dave McDonald. You can catch him on Compound Media. So check all that out, and thanks for joining me here again. And you can check out Coffee with Kramer on the iTunes, by the way. Thank you for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.